each other. So feel free to pop that in the chat here, and we'll go ahead and kick things off together. So hello, everyone. My name is Laura. I lead the success team here at LiveSchool. And this session is called 5 Habits of High-Performing PBIS Schools Using LiveSchool. Hopefully that's what you thought you were signing up for. 2 quick housekeeping things as everyone is jumping in for this morning. This is being recorded, and so we will send out the slides and the recording afterwards. So you don't need to sit there and take copious notes. You can just listen and then ask all of your really great questions of Cynthia and I. And here's how I'm hoping that we're going to spend our session together. I'm going to take just a few minutes in the beginning to kind of show you what LiveSchool is. So if you've never heard about it before, or you've heard about it but never seen it, hopefully I'm able to answer some of your quick questions about what that looks like. And then I'm going to get out of the way because I have got an excellent CPS teacher here who is going to tell you what it actually looks like in her classroom. So Cynthia Brawner teaches 3rd grade at Wadsworth STEM, and she has been both teaching and using LiveSchool for years, and it's just has a wealth of information that she's going to share with you today. I was also a CPS teacher and coach and admin back in the day, and I used and bought LiveSchool for my own middle school students. But I want you to be able to hear from people who are actually doing this every day in their CPS classrooms. So let's start with the basics, high level here. At this simple level, LiveSchool is kind of one place for all of the great cultural things that you are already doing for your students by hand. So how do you notice when a kid does something right? How do you reward it? And how do you let everybody see that? The student, the rest of your school, the student's family. And so there are 5 pieces to using LiveSchool to track just that. You've got behavior tracking, a reward store to give those points meaning, house points to be able to sort students into groups, hall passes to track where they are when they're not in your classrooms, and then updates for all of the families of the students that you work with so they can hear about that great news as well. And LiveSchool essentially helps all schools operate on one loop. So that same moment will show up a little bit differently depending on who you are in the school. A teacher might notice something like a student holds the door open, or one of your students finally gets started without being asked. A couple of taps, you award a point, and now you get to keep teaching. That student gets to see that point show up on their total. Eventually they can spend it in a store in LiveSchool, and then it's going to count for their house all at the same time. As a school, you see the different patterns. What are the different house standings across all the grade levels? Are our classrooms being consistent with each other? And each of your students' families gets to hear the good news in real time when something is going well. So not just when we unfortunately have to make those phone calls home about behavior that wasn't going well in the classroom. This is finally getting to recognize the students for all the great things that they do, and families being able to participate in that celebration. It all starts with one shared rubric across the school. So before a single point in LiveSchool gets awarded, your admin team decides what counts. That list of behaviors is your specific school-wide rubric. Every school sets their own behaviors, their own categories, what each behavior is worth. We kind of recommend that as a school, you build that rubric with teacher input, and then as a school, you choose whether or not you want to have negative behaviors and whether or not those negative behaviors will subtract points from students or not. And if you don't have kind of a list of behaviors or a rubric or a matrix that you're already using, there's a free rubric generator on our LiveSchool website with examples so that you don't have to invent it from scratch, as well as examples from all the great schools using LiveSchool that share how they're putting it into play. The objection that we hear the most often from teachers around any kind of initiative is, I don't have time for this or any other thing that's being added to my classroom. So I'd like to give an example of what awarding a point actually looks like in LiveSchool. You tap a student's name, you choose the point you want to award them, and that's it. Right? You can log those points in the moment, or you can catch up after class. And Cynthia can speak to kind of her best method for how she does both of those things. The teachers, right, that are able to use LiveSchool either will do this kind of from the board in the front of the room during transitions that they're already running anyway, or they might be keeping track on like a slip of paper or their notebook to be able to add when they get that moment. So not new things added to your day, but part of the routines that you're already establishing. And then those points get meaning through rewards. And I don't mean rewards that cost money. Most of the schools that use LiveSchool use free or almost free rewards. So if the thought running through your head right now is like, I cannot spend my money on things that I'm giving to students, you absolutely do not have to. Most of our schools use ideas like running a teacher versus student competition, offering an Uber by principal, where a student gets pushed from one class to another on a wheelie chair, or giving them the opportunity to assist the custodian, right? Privileges like that get your students really excited to demonstrate positive behavior without forcing you to buy more things to put inside of a store. And then house points are automatically added for each point that a student earns. So the whole school can engage in a friendly competition to be on their best behavior. And LiveSchool can randomly assort your students automatically and balance them by grade level, or you can choose how to sort your students if you have like an NFL draft style, or you use a sorting hat, Harry Potter style, or any other fun way that you kind of announce the different groups that your students are sorted into. And then think about when your families are kind of typically hearing from you and from your school. Usually it's when something goes wrong. That's when that phone call gets placed. But with LiveSchool, it's the opposite. So they will get a weekly email that goes out automatically to every connected family member with all of the points that their child has earned that week and the notes that the teachers have been attaching to it, what the student is being recognized for most often. All of those points are combined into one place. So it's not as if the family is getting 5 separate emails. They're just getting one holistic picture of their child's week without any extra work for the teacher. It just sends on its own. And something new for this school year, for teachers, you can issue a pass to a student who's leaving your classroom in the same place where you're already awarding points to them. And you can set time limits. So a bathroom pass might be different from a nurse pass, and the pass will turn red the second that it runs over. And for admin and site leaders, you get a log across all of the grades, a heat map of where your hallways are the busiest, and a no meetup list so you can stop 2 specific students from being out at the same time. What we usually hear from schools who are reporting to us is that what they have in common is consistency. Every single staff member in the school is recognizing and rewarding positive student behavior throughout the school year. But here's a gap that all of us know, right? A great plan is not the same thing. It's not the same thing as having a great day. And so whether you're rolling out PBIS for the first time or you're in year 14, the distance between that plan and the actual day usually comes down to just a handful of habits. These are the 5 that we're going to cover today that we hear from our schools most often. 1 is reward the habits, not just the behavior. 2 is let consistency compound across the week. 3 is give the points somewhere to go. 4 is to make it visible beyond one classroom. And 5 is to back it with leadership that responds. But rather than me explaining any of these, I asked a teacher who actually lives them to share her specific story. And so I want to turn this over to Cynthia Brawner at Wadsworth STEM to start sharing with you how she's using LiveSchool in her classroom.
Hello, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. As she said, I am Cynthia Brawner from Wadsworth STEM Elementary, where my principal is Dr. Rashid Shabazz. I teach 3rd grade ELA, social studies, and writing. So let's talk about LiveSchool. Okay, so as far as, first of all, let me just say this. In the beginning, it's going to feel as if it's something new. Think of it as a new pair of shoes. You're used to the old shoes. You put on a new pair of shoes and there's a little discomfort. But as you wear the shoes, the discomfort ceases and the shoes become comfortable and more familiar to your feet. That's kind of how I look at LiveSchool. It took me a minute to turn the system on every day. And when I say system, it's just clicking a link. It's just logging in. But I had this routine that I need to take attendance and I do all of this in the morning before, that first signal of you should be teaching your class because instruction starts at a certain time. Well, what I had to do is just intentionally open LiveSchool first, then I open Aspen. Because once I open Aspen, it's over. Once you start putting in attendance, and then you might want to drop in some grades as the day goes along. Once you start talking to the students, your mind wasn't, well, at least my mind wasn't conditioned to go back to LiveSchool. So having it open on 2 systems, the laptop that I use to just go around throughout the day, helping students out, troubleshooting things, and my monitor in front of the classroom where I do all my presentations, I made sure that LiveSchool was open there. So if I click on the computer to give a reward, they hear the wonderful sound of reward, or they may hear that wonderful dreaded sound of, oh my gosh, who lost the point? And so that's just to be real on that part. It is an adjustment. But if you work at it, if you took week one, and I know we got kids coming in, and it seems really challenging, that is the week to open it up, because as we know, once we survive week one with our routine, it sticks with us. And some of the things we add on as we go. So enough on that. So here's how I reward at school. I'll just take my last year's group. Last school year, I had some students who really had me to really try LiveSchool with the rewards, but it was more on behavior. And when I found myself, okay, here comes Johnny, here comes Susie, here's, boom. And it wasn't the wonderful chime of, ooh, who got the positive points? It was more so, as a colleague yesterday said, it was the red points, which are the negatives, but the red is the softer word. And I had to check myself, because when I would, and I am a reflector, I will look at LiveSchool 3-4 times a week just to see how students are doing, because in the moment when you click, or if you use a post-it note to write it down and get back to it later, and I'll tell you about my stories with that, you don't really know how often a kid is getting a red point. And so in reflecting, I realized that there were some patterns. There were 4 students who were the ones that always found a way to get the red points. Now they got some green points, which are the positive ones, but for the majority of the week, they would be in the red. And the goal is not to have a student feel, oh my gosh, I'm going to get another red. Why should I care? But I try to catch things in the beginning so that that behavior doesn't continue. So what I would do is, if I saw that, I'm just picking a name, if Susie had 5 red points in the same area and she came to school every day for that week, that's a conversation she and I have to see what's really going on. And what I try to establish in the first week of school is, which I'm sure a lot of us do, find out who you are. So there's a lot of student voice that goes on during that first week. So when, I can figure out their triggers, so no one is getting a large amount of red points. So now with the rewards, students are rewarded for attendance. And here's how. Our school rubric is set up, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your school can set up your rubric that will meet the needs of your school community. So ours is set up that if you come to school, there's the perfect, there is the attendance. You came to school. So we'll start with a Monday. You came to school on Monday, you have a point. But then there's the daily attendance, which I was like, okay, this is cool. All right, let me see how to work it. And when I looked at it, I realized the daily attendance, I can go up to 5 points. So what I've done is, you get every day you come to school, you get the attendance point. But let's take 1 week. If you come to school on Monday, you get the 1 attendance point and you get a daily attendance point. You come to school the next day, Tuesday, you get the 1 attendance, but now you get 2 for the daily, because it's your second day here. And then keep in mind, follow that system. By the time you get to Friday, your daily attendance is 5 points. So if you add all of those up, the 1 through 5, including the 5, those are the extra points the students receive, in addition to just coming to school and earning that 1 point. So how does that help? That helps with students, especially if they hear the chime, excuse me, the chime. They're like, okay. And I'll just say this as I'm thinking of it. My plan this year is to do it as they're walking through the door, because you can't access LiveSchool on your cell phone if you so choose to use your cell phone for that. And have the system set up, even if it's on like a larger screen on your desktop. Once you chime it, that it echoes throughout the room. And I tend to have my screen on speaker, so that is an extra chime that the students are getting. But I'm gonna try it this year, and if come back next year to talk about it, I'll let you know how well it worked. But the intent now, instead of them coming in and me taking attendance and giving them that point, and they assume that they got the point, I will do it as they're walking through the door, just to check off that they have made it here. And it is such a cool thing. So that's for attendance. Students also earn points for completing an assignment. They earn points for starting an assignment. They earn points for collaborating. If there's a student who needs a little bit of help, they will earn the positive points for that. I mean, the way, like I said, the way our system is set up, students have the best opportunity to do their best, to show their best, to show the habits of, yep, I'm a cool person to work with. Yes, I know how to help others. And I don't give answers because I know sometimes that gets tricky. A rule I have, helping doesn't mean give the answer. Helping means to show how to get the answer. So, I mean, you think about it as following directions, trying to navigate from point A to point B, and you're in a new town or a foreign land per se. You don't know that the directions too clearly. Even if you had Google Maps, you still kind of got to get your boundaries straight. Well, instead of someone walking you through, you prefer that they, I mean, and giving you the answers, or just like taking you there and you don't really know how you got there. They give you the directions and the steps to get there. So that's kind of how I run my classroom, so that students are honestly earning points of helping out another student. And then it takes a moment. It doesn't happen day one. It takes about a month or so before they realize, oh, I didn't help you so much. So they get points for all of those things. If you know, being kind, being respectful, following directions, hallway behavior is the negative behavior will get those points. But there's also the habits of that they have in the hallway. We have now had, because I'm part of IoT, we had a discussion. What do we want the students to be at 0 or at a 0.5? So you have to be real. People come together, they're going to talk. As long as the conversation is quiet and they can hear me. And I don't mean a conversation of, hey, what you doing tomorrow? But it could be, hey, you need to tie your shoe. You know, we don't want to ding a kid for helping out another student. So I want to go too far on this, but those are some ways that I get points for everything possible so that students can be successful. So by the end of the week, which they go shopping every Friday, by the end of the week, they have some points. And oh, yeah, I think there's another slide I can talk about the stores. I don't want to get ahead of myself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
Okay.
you mentioned too that you also recognize students for right, being on time, being in uniform, participation, collaboration, but also creativity. How do you kind of
Yes.
recognize students for creativity? What do they demonstrate in order to earn something like that?
So creativity is a challenge in a way of, if I drew an X, that could be my creative way, you know, versus someone drawing an O or writing an O. So what I gauge for creativity, and there is a small rubric, it's not like 20 boxes, it's just a couple of things. A student will have to do what they normally would not do. So since it's ELA, if they're reading a story and they embellish some words, that is a form of creativity versus what it looks like at Wadsworth STEM. I'm just reading off the slide, you know. But if they go, what it looks like at Wadsworth STEM, that's a better creativity. And I mean, it's really subjective. You can't lose a point as long as you change the variation of what you do. When it comes to the work and when I have them do projects, I look at, did you just follow the directions to the point it looks like what you think it should look like versus what you want it to look like, but still following directions, you know? And so I look for those different things, but I also try to learn what their niches are so I can see what their baseline is to decide how creative something is. And no one has ever gotten a negative in there. You know, if you did some work and you didn't do a creative job, you just didn't get the point.
Well, and you explained to us how you kind of have additional points worth more the later in the week. So if they earn 1 on Monday, they can earn up to 5 for that same behavior. What happens like if a kid is absent? Do they lose their streak, or how does that work for the way you recognize your students?
So the unfortunate part is you can't get an attendance point if you're not there. And that's the whole point. It is also devised in a way to encourage students coming to school. I get it that parents make doctor's appointments because my kids are 8 and 9. So they really for our community, they don't control their day as far as they coming to school. They can be highly persuasive depending on how bad they want to come. I mean, it can work in both ways. They can be persuasive and staying home, or be persuasive and coming to school. And so with the points, and that's where the consistency comes in. A couple of years ago, I wasn't as consistent because I just would get caught up in the day and I would forget. And then that's where my post-it notes would come in when I realized, oh my gosh, the kids were like, well, why should I care about LiveSchool? We don't get the points anyway. And I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, you do. Okay, let me like make sure that that you know that you're getting your points. And so I'll have post-it notes. I got this little 5x7 or 5x8 clipboard, but binder kind of thing. It's not real thick. It's kind of thin, where I got some post-it notes in there, and as long as I have the date, and I'll put the initials, and I'll put kind of like an initial or an abbreviation of the category, so I know what the students will get a point for, and I'll put the points in later. I have been guilty of putting the points in. If they got a point on Monday, I've been guilty of putting it in by Friday, but as long as I get it in actually before they go shopping, they're good. Because what I do is convert their points to money, and not real US currency, but the replica of US currency. And it's the one that when I looked at it, that they use for the props, the money props, that looks like the actual money, but of course it got the big words, fake money. And we do that for the social studies sense, so they can understand that the world that they're in order to make it, you got to have money. And even though I don't teach math anymore, that is something that you can't get around. You cannot live in society without money. So I connected the money to it, so when they go shopping, they can understand. And I think in a moment we're going to talk about stores.
What's actually like in your store? How does Friday shopping work?
So there are two stores. We have the school store and we have my store. They tend to go to my store a lot, but then when I run out of merchandise, they're like overloading on the school store. So the way it works, the school's store has the traditional pencils, paper, erasers, crayons, and those kind of things. But since my room is well stocked, they don't have a need for that too much. But the cooler part is that what I don't have in my store, it may be lunch with the principal. 5 minutes added to the recess, which we can't really control. We can sneak and say it, but it's not the reality, because we don't want to get dinged for, oh, you took extra 5 minutes and now here comes the other group and you're clashing. So those are the cool things, the extra 5 minutes for recess from admin. Having a day of no homework, which we're allowed to do not too often, but yeah, they can get a day of no homework. And just those cool things. Maybe have a movie popcorn day, where it's a group of them and they go to, after I guess right before specials, they pick a time in the afternoon where the kids will go downstairs and have a popcorn movie day or something for those who purchased it. And it has to be they don't do it if it's just one student. You have to get a group of students, so it's not like you just pulling one kid out. Now my store, I write a lot of donuts choose projects, and unfortunately have been funded on many of them. Sometimes there are some things left over. For example, I wrote a donut shoes and got earbuds, and I ordered like 35 based on the students who would need it. And it was also in case one break, I had extra. But however, that school year, I didn't need about 15 of them. So what I did last year is put them on my school store, where if the students' headphones broke, they could then purchase earbuds. But the thing about that is, they had to use their LiveSchool points to initiate the purchase, but in order to pay for the earbuds, they had to use what I call cash, their cash, to get it. So they had to keep up with their money. And the funny part would be, okay, it's not too funny on their end, but my end, they knew Friday was shopping day. Why would they leave their cash at home knowing that they wanted things from my store and they couldn't buy them? Because it's like, sorry, you gotta have cash. You go to Jewel, you go to any of these other stores. They don't, if you don't have a credit card, they don't say, oh, okay, we'll give it to you because you left your money at home. Please bring it back. No, I said, no money, no buying. And I was working on the credit card thing. I did try that, but I didn't have access to a swipe machine. So this would be really real world. But that is how we connected with the LiveSchool. So it becomes meaningful, because you can't spend your cash in the room until you've earned some LiveSchool points, and then they would be charged like 2 points to, access my store and things like that. And I also had in my store, because one of the kids, they do have student voice in my room. They were like, well, can we eat lunch with you one day? I'm like, I don't realize that's the most sacred time of the teacher's day. I'm like, lunch with the teacher? I don't know. So somebody says, well, make it a LiveSchool thing, put it in your store and let us buy it. And I'm like, okay, it might cost you 1,000,000 points, but okay, we'll see. And what we've done is I put it is in the it should be, but if not, it will be this year in the store but they were able to purchase. I had like 5 lunch appointments with my students, and they fooled me. It would only be one person and they brought 5 friends. Who knew? But okay, so it was like 1 + 5. But it'll be in the store and they will purchase it. And I don't have them to take their entire lunchtime because I want them to have their recess so they can have that loose time, that time to like get rid of that extra energy. And so it would only be the 20-minute lunch, and they would go get their lunch. And I got permission from the principal. I don't just jump out and do things. They would go and get their lunch and immediately come up to the room. And I have tables, I don't have desks. And so I would kind of decorate the little table, put a little plastic covering on it. And I got these like dollar store sparkly things that stick out like a paperweight, put that in the middle, and that would be the table that we ate at. And okay, so here's the catch. If you do that, they didn't talk to me. They wanted to talk to each other. I'm like, that is so unfair. How you having lunch with the teacher? You're not even talking to the teacher. But that was cool. I knew they would anyway.
Well, and you also mentioned that LiveSchool is bigger than just your one classroom. How do your students know that it's not just a Miss Brawner thing to get LiveSchool points?
So a couple of things. They know because I tell them at the beginning of the year when I introduce LiveSchool, and I go through a demonstration with them to show them how it works. And so the points for the first, for week 1, they actually see me do it and I take the time to do it. So when they hear these sounds, they know that these are the things that I'm doing, even though they may not always see it populate on the screen, but they will hear it. But I also share and show them, depending, now again, CPS sets it up. So if things aren't fully set up yet, because the rosters are still being adjusted, I do share with them that there are other teachers and who the other teachers are, because my students, they're coming from 2nd grade. And so they really only had one teacher they saw every day, and then our physical education teacher. So they didn't get that everybody else is considered the teacher or someone who has access to them on LiveSchool. So I share that because they will be sharing. They are a shared class. Like I have the ELA social studies writing. My colleague has the math and science. So they need to understand that she and I both will be giving them points, and they'll see both our names, as well as the physical ed teacher. And our students go to computer lab for iReady reading and iReady math. And those adults in there have access to LiveSchool. And I believe this year we're making sure that everyone who connects with kids have access to LiveSchool. I'm not sure how it's going to look. Like our lunchroom manager, she's supposed to have it, but I'm not sure if she's going to, if it's by grade. I'm not sure how that behind the scenes will be set up, but they want her to have access because she sees the kids at lunch. They want custodial because they see them in the hall. When they're doing their job, they want paraprofessionals or the SECAs, teacher assistants, everyone to have access, and not so much to the whole school, but just to the grades they service. Another way that we make it visible is I will show them the behind the scenes of LiveSchool, where here's your name, here's my view of what happened this week with the class, or this day, depending on what day it is. I'll show them up to that point. And I started printing some things out, but it got a little bit cumbersome. So I'm going to create a grid. Like you could convert. There is, if I'm not mistaken, there's a button on that you can click, or you can copy it's either CVC or Excel sheet. You can copy that and drop it into your own, so that students can see them, see their names and see their points published. And we have an open classroom in the sense of, I don't necessarily post their grades on the wall, but we have it where we're about empowering each other. So if you see someone with lower points, that is not an opportunity to tease them. One, I'll show you how you can lose all your points if you did that, because that's not something cool, because that's borderline bullying. But also how you can encourage each other to do better. I mean, we do it with reading, we do it with writing. If there's someone who's struggling, no one and it really works once you set that tone in the beginning. No one is laughing at the kid. You might get that first kid that laughs, and you realize, hey, that's not what we do. We reinforce it, because everyone's here to learn. And that concept of students helping each other with the reading also helps them in live school, because those are points for, hey, you collaborating, hey, you were helping someone out, you saw a need, and it wasn't like, hey, I'm smarter than you, I could do this better, you got to listen to me. Nothing like that. Because I've even had students who may not excel as high as others in reading, and they were earning points for being very helpful to others, being kind, being respectful. And I'm sure you see it in your classes too. But that the whole point of how live school can help students redirect what they're doing, because it's not so much as, I'm getting a reward, as it is I'm being recognized for what I do. And I'm real careful that, because their articles don't reward behavior with candy, because then it gives a false. Live school is not anything like that, because you figure, well, kids should come in and be great anyway. They shouldn't have, they should have some control. Okay, we're in 2026, life is different, and we know that children mean well, but a lot of times the examples that they have in front of them are not what would be best for a classroom environment in a public setting. And so one advantage we have of helping students make the right decision is through live school. Like, I stand by live school, and I'm not getting, anything for this, but what I found is how it helps me in my environment, because we are a neighborhood school, and you get in there, everyone, and a lot of times you get kids in the middle of the year after you establish your routines. And so what I found about live school is that it helps me help students realize, hey, I see you, whether it's a positive or a negative, I see you. And your administrator can set it up in such a way that even if students have like great ideals or something, or their conversation is great, and that goes beyond participation, like they are contributing to making this environment a better one, you can set that up. And as a rubric, I don't know what you want, call it what you will, but as long as every adult knows what it means, you can set it up and let kids know. And then you have this classroom. It's not gonna, there is no perfect, but there can be very near perfect. And live school helps you do that. And as long as kids know that I'm not using this as a punishing tool, but I'm using it as to let you know, I see you, and here's what I see that you're doing. And if it's not, because even with the negatives, with the reds, you can go up to, at least at our school, we can go up to 5. I don't kind of want to do that all the time, because now you're messing with their psyche, and now they're feeling like, okay, I already had a bad time, whatever, I'm just trying to be better, but now you're giving me the red points. What's my purpose? And so, yeah, I think I might have said a lot more than, okay.
Well, and you mentioned that like the house standings go in your school newsletter.
Yes.
How did that play out with your kids?
Oh yeah, see, I should have been reading the slide. Sorry, I get to talking about
No,
that's how
please.
passionate I am
It's
about
so
live school,
authentic. Yes.
because it's very, very helpful. It took, like I said, it took me a minute, but now that I'm in my groove, it's like, okay, let this work for everyone. So we have these houses. Oh my gosh. Okay, I was not the best person last year. I was professional, but I wasn't the best person. Beginning of the year to about December of 2025. Third graders, now mind you, I see both classes, and my colleague, she uses live school. We were in the lead of all the schools with our houses, because our principal, he'll post it in a weekly bulletin or a newsletter that we get. And we were rocking and rolling. And then somewhere in their kindergarten snuck up, and they by the end of the year, they outpointed us. I don't know, outscored us by 20,000 points. How does that happen? They're 4 and 5 years old. We couldn't get it, but we dropped the ball somewhere. We picked it back up, but it still wasn't enough. We were still in the race. We came in second place. So yeah, the house helps you out. It helps me out, because every week I saw it, I was like, oh shoot, did I put in our points for this week? And so it kept me on my P's and Q's, on my toes per se. And the students, that though they don't see the bulletin, I did share it with them. But this year, I believe, Laura, that they'll get to see the houses, and that is always helpful. It's a healthy competition. Just instill in the students, don't get mad. Just change your ways, or whatever word you want to use. But in the gist of it, it is just do better, or do, be extra, be that extra person that is well-rounded or becoming well-rounded. So yeah, I get everything. So it's about every adult. Yeah.
Well, and you also mentioned, and this is for all the administrators in the room as well, that your principal actually does a lot of things to help keep LiveSchool alive. What are some of the things that you've
Yes,
on
so
this year?
I love Dr. Shabazz, and I say that not in a way because I'm trying to get something. It's just he's an administrator that if there's a situation that's hindering you from helping students be a better student, and or even if it's a situation where something not as positive, he's on it. Granted, he may not be able to get on it at that minute when you need it, but especially with the live school, by the end of the day, whatever I had a need of, if he was able to do it, it was done by the end of the day, or he would have looked into it and is waiting on someone to respond back to him. But he had some answer by the end of the day. For sure, by that second day, it's done, or you have your answer. So, because there was a question when the store came up, when we had the store, followed all the directions, couldn't get in the store, and it was like, you need your admin approval. And I'm like, what? Okay, what is this? I went to him that afternoon on my lunch, just popped in his office real quick. And by that morning, he had an answer for me, because I didn't stay late, so I didn't get the answer. But by that morning, he had an answer for me and said, this is what you need to do, and da 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 da. So it solved that issue. I mean, he is on it. He is the one. I'm not sure who all is on his team, but he monitors the houses too, and the point system. And actually, before CPS got LiveSchool, he had us using LiveSchool. I mean, it wasn't as evolved as it is now. So there was some pushback, like, oh my gosh, just too much work. But once you realize it's not, and again, use it in the sense of, I'm not doing this to attack you or reward those who do great, but use it in the sense of, to let the students know, I see you and I hear you, and this is what I saw. Now, you don't want the red, then let me see some other stuff, and that way you have that student buy-in, and it's not so much that they are angry at you because that teacher gave me the red. No, you earned it. This is all what you earned. And so help them understand that, and it'll be one of those tools that you use to I don't want to say control, but to have a more productive classroom environment. And it helps build the community, because the students will see where everyone is, and hopefully you have a group where they are open to being helpful to others. I got everything right.
Yeah. Well, and we also wanted to make sure that people got to hear, about the harder parts, right? Like getting set up, and the ones that haven't totally been solved yet. So maybe tell us a couple of things about what you do that aren't as easy in LiveSchool, or how you get past them.
Okay, so like I started out with, the hardest part was remembering to open LiveSchool. And you'll see something to go, oh shoot, I didn't open LiveSchool, and I missed all those opportunities before. So I'm gonna be real with you. Once I start teaching, once I get into the group, once the kids come in, I don't go, oh wait, hold that moment, let me go run to LiveSchool. Okay, hold on. I don't stop my flow. So that's where the post-it notes come in again. And it's not as immediate, because the things may happen and we move on to something else, and then in the back of my brain it's like, oh, that was a LiveSchool plus, jot that kid's name down real quick. And you might even want to just have a grid, because in Aspen we can print out a blank, not the roster, but a blank grading grid, and have that with the kids' names on it, and section it off with it by dates, and however, create a coding system for yourself, so you'll know what, especially the points that they will get the areas where they will have points the most, like finished assignments and things like that, the basics, and the other stuff you can catch right and write down. But my challenge was just actually doing it. I had one year a student said, so you told us to do da 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 da, and you'll give us LiveSchool points, but we haven't heard any sounds yet, and it's been a whole week. I'm like, oh man, I did drop the ball on that. And you know, I didn't get upset with the student, but I do now. I'll just say this because some adults will be like, "You let the kid talk to you like that." We have conversations in my classroom. I really do try to set them up for the real world, but I do also guide them through it. So you know, if she was twisting her head and rolling her neck, I'll tell her next time. You can tell me that without all the drama, but I appreciate you coming to me and telling me that. You know, now you get one chance with me. You know, one warning, and if you keep repeating that behavior, then we have a different conversation. But yeah, those are my challenges. Just actually doing it, having it open, and trying not to capture every single thing because that's going to be impossible. But just as I see it, write down what it is and make sure at least by the end of that week before they go shopping to give them the points. And the other thing was we just started a Friday shopping. Oh, I was notorious. I would say, hey, we're going shopping and get busy. And then the day would go by and they're like, wait, okay, we'll do it Monday. Monday come, Monday, then we're going to Tuesday. And I'm like, you know what? I just need some help. So I did have the kids. I had a couple of kids who were the most respected, so I wouldn't get my feelings hurt if they stopped me in the middle of a day. And they would remind me on Thursday, don't forget, we're going shopping on Friday. And the way I did the shopping, they weren't given the items that they purchased on Friday. They were given them on Monday or Tuesday, depending on what it is they asked for, because I needed time to look through and see who was requesting what. But yeah, that was my hardest. That was the struggle. And I had to just sit back and figure out what's the routine. And that's why now I open it before I open Aspen. But yeah, it was a challenge. And the whole buy-in, because I'm like, okay, wait. Oh, I have to individually go and click these rewards with the name. But the cool part about LiveSchool is you have all the names on the page, and you can do an attendance there. It doesn't go to Aspen, but you do an attendance there so that the students who are absent, you don't accidentally click them, but you can focus on those who are there. And once you click them, if they all are earning the same reward for the same points, that's easy peasy.
Yeah.
Hope that's helpful.
Just to show what that looks like in case people wanted to see. So a lot of our teachers, this is a fake school, but if you mark off a couple of kids as being absent in the beginning of the day, and then everybody else gets that point for being on time and ready to learn, or whatever rubric your school has used, then they can all get that point awarded to them at the same time. And then similarly, if they're all buying the exact same reward, like you described, you can also select all of your students in order to provide them with that same reward, whatever that reward might be. I want to make sure that you're able to also share for that really difficult group of students that you've had for this last year, who started the year as your hardest. You know, what happened throughout the year? How did you have those continued communications with them, and how did it end up?
So this little tyke, every time he heard the sound for the red, oh, I know that's me. Oh, I know that's me. And I'm like, if you know it's you, then stop doing what you're doing. And, you know, I had conversations with him, had conversations with the family. In some instances, having conversations with the family may not always be the best because it changes to a different negative response and you're trying to get a positive. So I just had to figure out, okay, I got to, you know, this kid has to exist. We got to coexist in this room for however many hundred some days. And I sat down because I said, look, you keep getting this behavior. What's up? And he said to me, and I know he was going for a reaction. I don't like you. I hate you. And I said, oh, okay. So we're going somewhere. So I gave him a point for being honest. And he was like, wait, what? I said, it's okay how you feel about me. You're going to feel about people. You know, that was my little social studies lead in SEL. You're going to have feelings about people, and it is okay. But what you do with those feelings is what you have to figure out. So I will say this for the kid that every day that came, you know, was like, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like her. I became her. I was no longer Miss Brawner. And I had to go, okay, what do I do? Do I pull a rank and say my name is Miss Brawner? Do I just let him get it out his system? And when he realized I wasn't going to respond to that, and he when I also realized he was doing things just to get the negatives, he just didn't get any points that day. But I'll say this, he came every day. So he never, oh my gosh, this kid never missed a day. And I would see how he would act in other venues, and I would catch him. I said, oh, so you do have a very good side about you. And it was him slowly kind of changing his ways. But since he tried to establish that he was cool because he didn't like Ms. Brawner, he had to kind of hold on to that. And it was okay. But we understood, and he became a little bit more respectful. He started, and he wasn't like disrespect in a very harsh negative way. It was, if I say stand up, he sit down, and I'd be like, okay, well then, you know, all right, fine, do whatever. We're gonna keep it moving. We're not gonna focus on that. And so yeah, it ended up being that he actually told me have a good summer. So I'm like, hey, you all right. And so we'll see what fourth grade brings for him, even though he won't be in my room, but we'll see.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think it's to your point, it's just consistency, right? That's
Yes.
what you're saying, small signals every day, not only from you, but from every adult in the building. And
Right.
I think that's been kind of the theme throughout your entire journey here. And so one, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story with everyone. And before we open it up to any kind of questions that people have, the whole session and kind of the 5 big takeaways here, name the habits that you want. Right. So write down the 5 things that you want to see every morning and start there. Cynthia's rubric, for example, has like creativity and collaboration on it, not just conduct. Make your consistency worth more. So maybe you give 1 point on Monday, but 5 by Friday, so that one change kind of stops the system from rewarding the kid who has a great one day, but then tries to coast for the rest of the week. Pick a spending day. So Cynthia, you mentioned once you finally picked Fridays, we're moving it to Thursday on a short week, that weekly store gives the week a finish line. And that open-ended store, unfortunately, just kind of gives you a line at your desk or a headache to try to come up with the logistics for. So just pick a day and then put all those standing somewhere public. Might be in a newsletter, might be in the hallway, might be in the morning announcements. You mentioned your school, runs all of the different houses in the school newsletter, and that's how kindergartens win. Over 3rd grade becomes a whole thing. That competition kind of does that reminding for you. And then ask your admin for improvements, right? Be specific, ask for a behavior to add or a fix that you need. Cynthia mentioned that her principal just turned things around by the next day, and that's why that system keeps working even as you get into the springtime. But now I'd love to open it up to questions from everyone. Just as a reminder, we will share out the slides and the recording afterwards, so nothing here is lost. And obviously a big thank you again to Cynthia for sharing her story here. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat or come off mute, whichever is easier for you. And my email is here on the screen. But Cynthia, as people are kind of thinking through their initial questions here, what advice would you give to people who are going to start using LiveSchool for the first time next week?
I would say embrace it in a loving, kind way. Again, I go back to the pair of shoes. It is a tool that will benefit you and the students, and school-wide, not just your classroom, but school-wide. And you should see a change with the consistency, but do not quit. And if you feel that, hey, I really can't get this, reach out to someone, because it is not as difficult as it is like the new pair of shoes. They're hard to wear the first day, but as the day goes, as the week goes, they become a little more comfortable. And that's how LiveSchool is.
Yeah, well, and I know that you would also mention to everybody what it looks like when you're actually trying to show reporting on your students to the students themselves, and how there's different ways of grabbing that information. So just wanted to show that, like in LiveSchool, whenever you want to grab information about a student, you can do so via like a timeline view, where it's every single point that student has earned and what they earned it for, when they earned it, as well as any comments that are associated with it. You can also pull a report of a dashboard per student. So for any given student in your school, you can have that conversation where you talk about consistency across the year, or what behaviors they're getting recognized for positive reasons, or the red points that Cynthia described, the negative reasons, or what rewards they've been purchasing the most often. Or you can also print out any of this information for any student or any family member to grab it for a week at a time, or a quarter, or the whole year, just to share all those different merits, demerits, comments, rewards, any hall passes they've taken in kind of that paycheck format. Because Cynthia mentioned how important it is to really tie this together with social studies and math concepts, right? So this financial literacy piece of what are all of the great things that you're doing? How does that then earn towards options, rewards, incentives, lunch with you if you're so willing, to be able to turn those into real things that matter, as well as to the houses that you are supporting with the points that you're earning. So all different options as you're looking to share that information with your students or with your students' families. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in on the chat, but I want to give anybody else a last second to be able to ask that question if they've got one.
I do have a question.
Please.
I'm here and I'm not sure where you guys are, but I'm here in Illinois and there's been some storms. So my colleague called and told me she wasn't able to get on because they're still working on the power issues in her area. Will the people who at least signed up for the class and weren't able to come on, will they get the material?
Yes, so everyone who signed up, and I believe they also make everything available to all CPS educators, regardless of whether or not you've attended the session. Specifically, everyone who signed up for the session will get a recap email afterwards with the slides, the recordings, and a quick walkthrough of the things that we chatted about, as well as my contact information in case they have more questions. But especially if you're in CPS at all of the slides across all sessions are made available to everybody to be able to check out, as well as all of the recordings. So I know that there is often 2 or 3 great sessions at the same time and you feel pulled in one direction. You're also able to access those, even if you didn't end up signing up for one of those.
Okay, great. And this program, the LiveSchool, it's one that needs to be purchased by the school?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So if your school is interested, then feel free to have them head over and chat with us. I'll put our website in the chat here and they can see if it would be something that would be helpful for them. And we're happy to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, before you do head to your next session, CPS did ask us to share just a few things. So the district does have AI guidance up at cps.edu/AI. There's also an AI Foundations quiz and badge if you're just getting started. And there's a CPS Neural Network, which is a Google Classroom community of practice with monthly networking hours and training with partners like Stanford. And we just want to say thank you again for all of you for attending, giving us some of your time this morning. Thank you so much to Cynthia for sharing her story and opening up her classroom walls to all of you. I know that this is a chaotic week as you're trying to get everything up and running. So thank you for spending your time prepping and sharing this great story with everybody, and enjoy the rest of Google.